Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're jumping right into one of the most fascinating, kind of mind-boggling contradictions in the tech world, the touchscreen MacBook. You know, it's a device that, according to the strict, unwritten laws of Silicon Valley, technically shouldn't exist. Yet here it is, sitting right at the center of a massive industry paradox. Think about it. On one hand, you have an entire market of competitors treating touchscreens as an absolute bare minimum standard. And on the other hand, you have a notoriously stubborn tech giant that has literally spent a decade and a half refusing to budge. But as you'll see, the tectonic plates of the laptop industry are shifting, and they're shifting fast. Look, for years, Apple has strictly forbidden touchscreens on their laptops. It was simple. If you wanted touch, they pointed you straight to the iPad. If you wanted a laptop, you got a mouse and a keyboard. End of story, right? Well, maybe not anymore. The murmurs in the industry right now are backed by some really compelling evidence suggesting a massive pivot is coming, possibly as early as this year. We're looking at a very real scenario where Apple might finally break its absolute biggest, most fiercely defended rule. So how on earth did we get here? And more importantly, is it actually going to work? The wild thing is, we don't even have to wait for Apple to give us a sneak peek of what this future looks like. The hardware is actually out there in the wild right now. There's this third-party accessory called the Magic Screen. It's essentially a clear sheet of plastic with a built-in digitizer that snaps magnetically right onto your standard MacBook screen. You literally plug in a single cable and boom, instantly you've got a fully functional touchscreen. You can swipe through the web with your finger or grab a pressure-sensitive pen and draw in Photoshop just like you would on a Wacom tablet. It totally proves that a touchscreen MacBook isn't some pie-in-the-sky sci-fi concept. It is technically possible and honestly functionally impressive right now. But seeing this awesome third-party hack immediately makes you wonder, if it's really this easy, why hasn't Apple just built the whole shebang themselves? Well, that brings us to the 15-year anti-touch rule. To understand the holdup, we really have to look back at Apple's incredibly stubborn design philosophy. And it all hinges on an infamous decree from Steve Jobs back in 2010. He took one look at the concept of a vertical laptop touchscreen and publicly branded it ergonomically terrible. His logic? It was actually super straightforward. If you're sitting at a desk with a normal laptop, constantly reaching your arm up and over the keyboard to poke at a vertical screen is just exhausting. Your arm gets heavy. It just doesn't feel natural at all for long sessions. And for 15 years, that single ergonomic argument has basically been the absolute law of the land at Apple. And, you know, he kind of hit the nail on the head when we look at the rest of the market. Windows devices, from the Dell XPS to Lenovo Yogas, have rocked touchscreens for nearly 2 decades now. But let's be real about the user experience here. While touch is totally commonplace on Windows, it's very often completely ignored on a traditional clamshell laptop. Why? Because Jobs was actually right. It is super tiring to poke out all day, you end up with a display covered in gross, smudgy fingerprints, and you usually have to tilt the screen at weird angles just to keep it steady. Microsoft has definitely tried to tweak things by spacing out icons, but the interface rarely feels like it was purpose-built for your fingers. Meanwhile, Apple has just stayed incredibly strict about sticking to the unparalleled precision of their trackpads. Which leads us perfectly into our next point: why macOS hates fingers. If you actually go out and use that Magic Screen hack today, you'll immediately get why Apple has been holding back. macOS is an absolute nightmare for touch navigation. The entire operating system is designed exclusively around the pinpoint precision of a tiny mouse cursor. Just think about those little red, yellow, and green window buttons in the corner of your screen. Hitting those with a mouse cursor? Completely effortless. But trying to tap them with the clumsy bluntness of a human finger? It's honestly like trying to thread a needle while wearing oven mitts. It just feels clunky. Trying to rename a file or drag a tiny drop-down menu feels way worse on a Mac than it does on Windows 11, simply because macOS is aggressively reminding you that it was never ever meant to be touched. So here is the ultimate mystery. If the software is currently that clunky, and the founder publicly trashed the ergonomics, why are all the signs, rumors, and supply chain leaks pointing to an imminent, totally revamped OLED touchscreen MacBook? Why now, after 20 years of adamantly saying no way? Well, let's dive into it. It all boils down to 4 massive industry shifts that have finally aligned. Let's start with Catalyst 1, hardware evolution. Historically, adding touch to a laptop meant you had to compromise the display. You literally had to slap an extra digitizer layer right on top of the screen. And that made laptops thicker, heavier, and, crucially for Apple, it reduced the brightness and degraded the image quality. For a company that is absolutely obsessed with perfect displays, that was a total deal breaker. But modern manufacturing has completely changed the game. New tech actually allows engineers to bake the touch-sensitive components directly into the display stack itself. This means you get flawless, uncompromised image quality, full brightness, and incredible thinness, all while getting the full touchscreen experience. The hardware barrier? It's officially gone. Moving right along to Catalyst 2, software redesign. This second catalyst is huge. It involves a total from-the-ground-up overhaul of how the operating system actually responds to your physical presence. Remember those tiny, frustrating window buttons we talked about earlier? Apple has actually already been laying the groundwork to fix this with their recent, rounder, liquid glass design language. But the real magic is what's rumored to come next, an adaptive UI. Imagine this. You're sitting at your laptop, you reach out toward the screen, and the exact moment your finger approaches, those tiny icons and menus dynamically shift, space out, and magically grow larger just to accommodate your finger. It takes that clumsy, blunt interaction of touch and makes it feel incredibly fluid, intuitive, and entirely purpose-built. Next up is Catalyst 3, Universal Apps. This third reason is all about the silicon powering the whole ecosystem. Ever since Apple transitioned to their own M1 chips and beyond, Macs have technically been able to run iPhone and iPad apps natively. But if you've actually tried doing it, you know it's, well, incredibly awkward. Those mobile apps were obviously designed for swiping and tapping, but right now, you're stuck simulating those actions with clunky mouse clicks. A touchscreen MacBook fixes that instantly. It means consumers can finally play massive mobile games exactly the way they were meant to be played. And for developers, it's a game changer. They can test their iOS and iPadOS apps directly on their laptops using their actual fingers, creating this seamlessly unified ecosystem from your phone to your tablet, straight to your computer. And finally, Catalyst 4, creating a new premium tier. We've got to look at the cold, hard economics of Apple's current product lineup here. When you look at their pricing tiers, the entry-level M4 and M5 MacBook Airs have become so insanely powerful and competitively priced that they've pretty much closed the performance gap for the everyday user. I mean, the Air is so good right now, it makes it really tough to justify upgrading to a standard MacBook Pro. So Apple needs a reason for the enthusiast market and super professionals to open their wallets and drop some serious cash. By introducing a brand new ultra-premium OLED touchscreen model, they immediately create a new, much higher price ceiling. It becomes the ultimate aspirational product that totally resets the top of their lineup.
Which brings us to the inevitable future.
When you take a step back and look at the big picture, it's crystal clear. All the pieces of this giant puzzle are falling into place at exactly the same time. You've got the uncompromised display hardware, the adaptive software that actually welcomes your fingers, the unified silicon running mobile apps natively, and a massive strategic need for a new ultra-premium flagship. The tech is absolutely ready to break Apple's oldest rule and completely transform how we interact with our most powerful computers. But as this revamped ultra-premium device gets ready to hit the shelves, it leaves us with one final, absolutely fascinating question to ponder. When Apple finally delivers the ultimate touchscreen laptop experience, is it going to be worth the ultimate price tag they're absolutely going to ask for it? Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer. I hope this helped you see exactly where the future of laptops is heading.